You can't keep using tools of oppression and expect to raise free people.
Peace and welcome to episode 97 of Fear of the Free Child podcast. If you're new, because I met a lot of folks who recently got put onto this community, welcome. I'm glad you're here and listening. If you've been here, you know I love you. You know I appreciate you. I got to meet in person a few of my patrons between the HSC conference in San Jose and the time that my family and I have been spending in LA and Long Beach and Inglewood and all these different parts of California. Man, I've gotten to meet folks who've been here since the beginning, folks who've been here before the beginning on their own journeys and connecting with Fear of the Free Child because it speaks to something they've already been feeling or doing alone or in partnership. And it's been awesome. I feel like all of this has been the celebration of the 100th episode. So by the time I get to actual 100, I'll have so much to put together, working with Juan Perez, who's been helping me with the editing. Shout out to you, Juan, for the work that you've been doing and allowing to happen through your skill sets. A lot going on, y'all. And we're about to get into it in this episode for sure. Let me take a moment here to shout out our most recent patrons, Rebecca, Romaine, Adrian, Luvinia, aka Lou, Caroline, and Lane. Thank y'all so much for your support. One of the reasons, as I keep saying, that I'm so excited that I'm going to be done recording in terms of weekly for this season is because I want to engage us more on Patreon. I have so many essays to write. I have so many videos to shoot. I have so many things that I just need the time and the space to process and share. And I just haven't been able to do it because producing the podcast each week is a lot. So thank y'all so much for your support. And really, this episode is going to speak to that in great detail. This episode is with Sonia LeBlanc. She and I have talked before. You've heard her before.
So I was like, okay, what can I do? Because I'm unschooling and that's great for me and my kids, right? Yeah. But there has to be something that I could do, that I could take information that I know, that I understand with my background and create something, because the people that I talk to that are like, yes, yes, yes about this, yeah. A lot of them are fellow educators that want their kids out of the system. Oh, yeah. They understand. And they're like, oh, I'm so jealous that you can do this, that you can unschool your kids. You know, I can't unschool my kids.
Yeah.
I don't have that money.
So I'm a single matter mom. Of accessibility. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about my mama, who was a single mama, yeah. Who worked 3 jobs to put us through the worked at the private Catholic school that I'm the 4th generation attending.
She is one of the founders of Nashville Sudbury, which is now in session, fully formed. Got learners in the mix. They have a location. They're open. They've started. And I really think it's important that these stories are told too, because Sonia and I initially got on a call to update everybody, for me to be updated, for y'all to be updated on her process from concepting this thing with people in her community to making it happen, right? We were going to talk about that, and we definitely do talk about that in this episode. But y'all, we go beyond that. We go beyond that, and she and I just shared woman to woman a lot of the personal struggles that come with doing what we do, with holding space in the ways that we hold space, with defining and refining self-care when the work that you start doing is working. You set out to do something and it starts to really work. It starts to take shape. It starts to be not just about you and this thing now, but you in community with other people who get it and who have been doing different versions of it and who find clarity and drive through the way that you show up. And so you get together now to actually get this thing done. That part calls for a different type of taking care of yourself. It calls for a different understanding of what it means to be present in a space and to be present for yourself and your family simultaneously. And that's what we're talking about when the work starts to work. So in that mix, you're going to get a lot of the things that I try to make sure that I share in most episodes, the logistics, the shit that makes it practical to actually get this done, to do something once you step outside of conventional education, to do something in community to support learning and to support young people's growth and to support your own growth. We talk about that, but we're talking about the personal work far more than the other stuff in this episode. And I'm really excited. And frankly, I feel like it's also, and I struggled with this, but this is where I landed and this is what I'm going to stick with. The Dear You letter for this week is embedded in this episode. Our conversation is the Dear You for that person who is doing the work and seeing the results of commitment, seeing it start to come to fruition and realize, oh shit, this is going to call for some other versions of me that I don't have a lot of practice with. And it can be really hard and painful, and it can show up in illness in your body. It can show up in relationships being harder than they normally are because you are different. You are heightened and broadened in a sense. So that is the Dear You letter. So I encourage you to listen to this and to write your own Dear You letter, or maybe it will be called a Dear Me then, to write your own Dear Me and maybe even share it with me. You know, you can share this with me using the voice memo option on AkilahSRichards.com, which is also raisingfreepeople.com. It's the same website. You can also email me directly, she@AkilahSRichards.com, and send me your letter. You can email it to me. You can send it as a voice memo, whatever. But I want you to listen to this. And if it resonates because you are also doing the work and the work is arranging your ass in ways that you're just getting used to, write about that. Share it with me. Maybe share it with people in your community or just write it for yourself. But the Dear You letter for this week is embedded in here. And yeah, it's good stuff. So shout out to Sonia. Her contact details will be at the end of this episode. Of course, the show notes page, as always, is just raisingfreepeople.com and the episode number. So in this case, it's raisingfreepeople.com/97. Yeah, I really appreciate Sonia for this conversation. And I hope it inspires you in whatever ways you need it. All right, y'all. Much love listening.
So glad that we're like somewhat sitting in front of each other, catching up.
I am too. How you doing, old friend?
You know what I'm saying? I'm good. So much has happened in a good way, in a crazy way. Health challenges are in the mix, but mainly I'm good and excited.
Yeah, me too. This year has been complicated and really hard at times, but just so powerful. Like there's just so much learning and like figuring out my personal story.
Yes.
That's the tricky part. Cause I mean, the school now is going to happen. And so now I have to think I've been working really hard on like not getting sucked in, like still being free.
Yes. And that's like hard, especially the first, it's not even really your first year, but like the first year with when things are like, oh yeah, all the seeds you planted.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's a little overwhelming, but I've really been working hard to create practices, put them in place for my own, like to take care of myself and just keep my eye on the prize of this school is what our community needs and what I want for my children. And I want to be absolutely an integral part of it, but I also, it's not my end. It's not my be all and end all.
Right. And it has to be sustainable for you too, emotionally and all of those different ways. Yeah. I hear you. And
that's hard because it comes across sometimes when I'm talking about it, like, oh, it's open. Now I want to be done and move on. And that's not what I'm saying. I want to be a part of it, but I want it to be a successful enough project or experience or school that it can sustain itself and it doesn't require me there all the time. And right now it's going to. I'd like to be more of the person that's sharing in the community and getting hyped up on that end and like going and speaking with like communities that I want to know about it and how we can figure out and getting people to fund it so that we can offer it to more people and like create collective communities. And it's really hard. Like there's not enough time in the day to do all of that when you're like, a fire marshal's coming tomorrow and we need to like make sure that we pass. So we're actually a school in 3 weeks when we open, since we've been saying we are, you know, there's so many little things. And then at the same time, I'm going, oh, but I want to write. I have a story that I want to write. And I don't have the brain power to do that. And oh, my kids are about to start school for real. And they want to go to the zoo and they want to go swimming because it's still summer. And but I have emails to send because people are wanting to take a tour. I need to communicate with them because it's so exciting that we're getting lots of press in our area. And oh, girl, it is a lot.
All of these things, like nothing stops and more stuff is happening. And as you said, you want to be committed, but not at the space of like throwing your body and soul at the steps of the school and being like, here, you have me for the next however long. Like, no, especially because you've been doing this mountain climbing on the back end for so long to even get it to this point.
Exactly.
Yeah. I understand, because it feels like a similar thing with the podcast where it's like, it's not a physical space, but it's certainly a location and it's certainly a community. And there are all of these needs, and I get these messages all the time, and I see what I can do, but I'm also two people's mom, and I'm also self-mothering, and I'm also someone's partner, and there are all of these other variables. And then you yourself, you also learn so much about yourself through the process, and as the process starts to come to fruition. And as you said, it's like the practices, the time to put them in place so that you are able to draw on them when you need to, not in a reactive space, but as a part of your daily existence. Like that learning curve requires the space that we just don't fucking have at the moment, or it feels that way.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, nah, I have to slow it down in the middle of all this speed. I have to slow it down. And that's what I'm reckoning with right now. Like, and that's the word I use on purpose. So it's like, it feels like it will be a reckoning if I don't put these practices in place, despite all of the other movement and exciting things that are happening. It's like the shit ain't going to be exciting if I'm in a corner balled up somewhere.
Amen.
Figure out how to breathe.
Yes. Yes. And it's a double-edged sword. I've been using the word abundance, like explosive abundance. And like I've been calling forth abundance in all areas of my life. And that's because of like what you said, you created this. It's like we created this space because it needed to be created, right? Yeah. And then because it needed to be created and it's not something that everybody is out there creating, people don't even realize they need it until they stumble upon it. And then they're like, hallelujah. Yeah. And then that's amazing. But then in the creation of it, we have freed ourselves, or we understand what it looks like to truly be free, right? Because we're speaking it and we're putting that idea out there. And so this abundance is coming back because we're in our power, right? I love your thing on Skype where you said the spell, like I am.
Cast yourself, you are the spell. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly it. And so in that, freedom is abundance, right? Yes. But abundance looks a lot of different ways, and abundance can be a flood. It can be overwhelming, and we have to figure out the grounding, right? We have to figure out the life vest, right? Like you can get on the lake, but you got to wear the life vest because when the boat starts moving, you may have to swim, right? And it's still great, but you have to set that up, and that. So it's like, it is a double-edged sword because it feels overwhelming and like you're losing control, which is the opposite of freedom. But it's because of the journey that we've been on, creating this space because everyone is so desperate to be free.
Yes, Sonia. And they're pulling at the thing that we've helped to build from all angles, and it pulls us too. Even for me, like learning how to delegate. And that's something that I've always been really good at, actually. Like I'm great at it. But in this scenario, because it is so personal, because it is tied to my own life, and it came from my own need and my own daughter's needs and my own like awakenings and different levels of mindfulness. It also becomes really hard for me to say, okay, how do I do this, especially in the mindset of abundance? And that's something that I've had to work through. That when you talk about this year being difficult, that's one of the main things that I've had to really recognize, like, oh shit, a lot of my own ideas, even how I was born, to take it all the way back in a space of like chaos, you know, like what I came into, realizing that I need to be very fucking literal about letting it go, about releasing my connection to struggle and lack. It's like that's come up in a way that used to come up before around money, because that's easy to see. But when you see it far outside of that now, which is, this is happening for the first time for me this year, it's like, okay, yo, oh my God.
Breathe,
like I have to
breathe through it.
Yes, that came up before I even existed in this body, in this iteration of myself. Like those things are now directly connected to the work that I'm doing now in ways that I guess wasn't ready for before or couldn't see before, but now I see it fully, but the work is still happening while I'm seeing this shit.
Yeah. I know. I mean, that's exactly, because as we've moved into this, like, we're starting a school, but I don't know if it's actually going to happen phase, which was even in the spring, we were in that space still because we hadn't found a location and we had lots of possibilities. Like all of the founders said, we're opening in the fall no matter what. We'll either go to the church that offered us space, that is offering us a relatively inexpensive rent, and comparatively to capitalism.
Right.
But I mean, there's no inexpensive rent,
right.
Unless it's free. And we said, we'll just be a learning center if we have to until we can find the space that'll allow us to be the school because of the requirements that Tennessee has for a private school and the location and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we were like, we're opening no matter what, right? We just didn't know. And then we had this opportunity for this beautiful home. And we were talking and speaking so much about not having a benefactor or not having a guarantor or not having anyone that could vouch for our community because there's nobody that's got a lot of money, right? Like there's 8 founders, but we all are just paying the bills and doing this on the side. Or some of us were doing it full time. We were working full time. Some of us were watching our kids and doing this, on the side. Everybody just paying their bills, trying to pay their rent and or their mortgage. The spaces that we were finding, they needed guarantors. They needed benefactors. Yeah. To guarantee that lease that we wanted to sign, that we weren't going to walk out on it. And, we can give our word all day long. And in an ideal world, as a collective, as a community, that would be enough. Yeah. And we found this beautiful space and it became I knew that this was going to happen. I just had this feeling when we walked onto the campus, I just had this peace. And I just said, you know what? This is our space. It may not happen today, but it will happen at some point. Maybe we have to go to a church for a year and this place is going to come up again. We're going to be in a position where we get it. Yeah. And I was just speaking that abundance, but also I was thinking in the back of my head, oh my God, well, this is actually going to happen. What the hell are we going to do? I would say to my girls, I was like, we're going to get this school. And they'd be like, does that mean we have to go every day? And I'm like, yeah, because I'm going to be the full-time staff person who's going to have to be there every day. And then here I am well, I created this space for y'all and nobody wants to get out of their pajamas to go to it. And it's supposed to be a space where everybody's supposed to be free except for my children. Every day has been a moment to take a second. Every morning I wake up and I write, I journal, and then I contemplate. And I recently kind of got into something I had never done before where I have an oracle deck that I have had on my shelf since 2001 that I just have carried I have a comparative religion section of my library that has shamanism and the Torah and a whole bunch of like catechism stuff from when I was in a Catholic school and I had books left over. Like, and it all just sits there together. There's a cool book called The History of Hell, and I love it. It's so fun. So, and so I just had a little oracle deck with that, and I traveled with it. Every time I've moved, I've packed it, never looked at it, pulled it out in January and said, you know what? I started a women's group because I had been a part of a women's group last year that was transformative. And so I was like, you know what? We need more of these spaces where women just gather together.
Oh, yes.
And just shoot the shit and bitch and celebrate and all of it. And make magic. And so I started this group and I pulled it out and I took it to our first meeting in January. And we just started playing with it. Well, now every day I pull one of those oracle cards. It's called Guardians of Wisdom deck. And I love it because it's from 2001. But when you look at the images, one of the controversies, I think, in this world of mysticism is that mysticism so white. I swear, didn't I say a hashtag Sudbury so white last year? But anyway, I've been focusing on and paying attention to people that are like in an alternative space for like tarot and oracle. And I happen to have these sitting on for almost 20 years. And they are one of the oldest decks and one of the most abundant decks of different people from all over the world, like the representation in the art. And so I was like, this deck I need to start using. And so every day I pull a card and it helps me just contemplate on, and they're oracles. So there's like a light and a shade side of each one.
And that's what I'm talking about with the practices that we put in place that are not reactive, but really like integrated into our day. But I love how you said you contemplate in the morning. Like these are the things we don't even feel like we have permission to do, but they're so important, especially when the things that you've been planting those seeds for actually start happening. I love talking to you, and every time we talk, I remember why. I'm like, what the fuck? Why didn't I talk to her like before now? Like, why was there so much space in between? Because every time with you, it's this space of like, yes, this is exactly what I'm saying. Like, we need to remember that we need to be doing these things and we don't have to have it all figured out or understand it fully. Just feel into the shit. Like, feel into yourself. What's coming up? What's feeling good? What's feeling useful?
Yeah. And we have to do that because if we're in these spaces, and I feel like there are a lot of people that are listening to you and your community and the things that you're doing, they're leaning in to this idea of freedom and deschooling and all the ins and outs of that. And it can feel overwhelming. Yeah. But if you just make sure that you are practicing that, taking care of yourself. And I hate the word self-care.
I'll hold it for you because I love it. I'll hold it.
You do. I love the act of it. I just feel like you don't need to light a candle, like really deeply taking care of yourself. Yeah. And that's your podcast has evolved so beautifully into those elements. I love listening to.
It has to. I'm glad that it resonates like that for you. It has to though, because it has to. What is freedom if we're not free? What is freedom if we're not free in our bodies and our brains and our thoughts and our,
Yes. So we always have to be thinking about what is next for ourselves, right? And like you create a space and that opens up. It's like you're opening up these pockets, these energy pockets in our atmosphere, right? Mm-hmm. And when you open up any kind of hole, there is a rush to fill it. And in opening these spaces, we are bombarded by this rush of people that are like, wait a second, that's open? Mm-hmm. I need to go. I need to see. I need to look through it and find out. And so we have to pass through those holes and get to the other side of them and then have a little bit of calm. And so even though that passing through can feel like a black hole of suction, which is where I feel right now. Like I feel like here I have opened up this pocket of this self-directed model, this community, this idea in Nashville that is growing, that people are understanding and they're figuring out and they're asking questions about and they want to know more. Yeah. And everybody wants to know more. And I can put it out there in ways that multiple people, it's like almost like automating how people know more, right? Yes. And I have to do that, but it's also like, also have to take care of me. And if I haven't, as I'm going through this black hole of suction, I have to like wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and read. And I have some stuff that I'm doing for myself, like, cause I have to grow my freedom. And one element that I have learned or that I have realized is that I have been in denial and I have been hidden away in terms of my financial freedom. And I have always looked at it as I can't do that or that will never be for me because I don't know, I'm not a victim, but boy, I've been playing a victim and a defiant victim at that. An angry, like you know what I'm saying? And
yes,
so
I do. Yes,
this past year, I was like, I can't do that anymore because here I've created this space of freedom. Here I've created, or I'm trying to create a collective. Yeah. I'm trying to create a community, but that is very difficult when everything around you revolves around how much something costs.
That's right?
And when you don't feel like you have any firm handle on anything that's personal about how stuff costs because you've blocked it and ignored it, you've just been hoping, which I have just every month. We don't have credit cards. We don't have anything. We have student debt that I ignore. And so I'm in default. So my credit's crap. So all these things. And I've just been like ignoring. Let me work on this school. Let me work on freeing my children. And then I realized this year, I realized what abundance means. I'm sorry, I keep going to abundance because it's just overwhelming my life right now.
It's timely. Like it is exactly what we're talking about is what we need to be talking about. You don't even know how timely this is right now. Or maybe you do because it's timely for you too. I feel like it's important that we have these conversations because we do segment the shit and act like, all of these things aren't happening to actual people. And I get it. Like I have a different version of the story, but when you talk about things that have been in the shadows, like for me, it's a lizard in particular, like that energy has been coming up. I have to now see them and experience them in a different way because I need to do a shedding of a skin that I realize that not only have I not shed, but I've been like holding on to the shit. It's been trying to shed and I'm like, oh, I'm not ready. Yeah, the hell you are. Because as you said, this portal, right? We open up this vortex and now all of these people are seeing it and wanting it all. And then it causes you to face those things that can't stay in there with you. So we gotta shed them.
Absolutely. And I'm doing it. It's happening. And it's all because I'm speaking it. It's like you spoke abundance into the universe and I got abundance. We got a campus that's beautiful. We got a caretake. We got the owners of our campus. We walked in there and they at first were like, well, we're going to need this kind of money up front. And that's when this all started. It was like, we're going to need $20,000. And I looked at myself and I looked at our founders. We were like, we can't do this, but it's the perfect space. But you know what? It's okay. So we walked away from it. We said, this is just not going to work right now, but we believe that we will find something. And if we don't, then we'll fall back and we'll regroup and it'll be fine. We believe that this is happening. So we already had put it out into the universe that this was going to come to fruition in whatever way, shape, or form. It's going to happen in 2018. And then a week later, they came back to us and they said, we are a school, because they were a school. And the couple, they had had this school since 2002 and it was very small and similar to a Sudbury in that there were probably 20, 25 kids. There was curriculum. I mean, it was like a school. It was called Nashville Christian Advancement Academy. And they had just started it out of their kitchen in 2002. And in 2009, they had bought this home and she was ready. Her grandchildren are getting older and she and her husband had been running it. And then they'd been living in the upstairs of this kind of big mansion and they'd been running the school downstairs. And she was just like, it's time for me to just go. It's time for us to just stop and retire and go be with our babies. And we got there and we met them and they were like, we want this to remain a school. We've gotten other people that are interested. They're willing to pay us the full amount for a whole year's rent. We have decided that we were graced with this building, the people that sold it to us in 2009, and we want this to remain a school. And so we are going to grace you. And it was like in that moment, we had our guarantor, we had our benefactor.
Yes.
They offered us this. And I'm going to tell you that when we met them, because this was all through a realtor at this point. Then when we went and we met them, they were from the Bahamas. And it was like you had come, we had met, well, at least for Tommy and I, it was like we were meeting family. Like we walked in there and it felt like we were on sacred ground when we all were together. And we talked about the model and they were like, we're not even familiar with this, but it sounds so fascinating. We took this space, it sits on a hill overlooking Northeast Nashville, really diverse area in a place that literally is like, part of it is industrial and it's on its way. It breaks my heart that about a mile closer into town, it's like gentrification city, but it's not there yet. It feels like this is just a farm. I mean, it's just far enough out to where it is still suburb, but industrial right across the street, not anything that anybody's looking at yet. Right. Okay. And when you go up this hill, it's this mansion that just sits on this hill and it's as if it's not there. Like when you drive by it, you don't realize it's there. And it was so funny because I got up there and this was after a few times that I had been talking to them and I was talking to the husband who, his name is Rick, and we were chatting and the wind was blowing and like the trees were rustling and you could just tell that this is just beautiful sacred land. And I looked at him and I said, this doesn't even feel like it. I'm looking across the street at it's like an industrial site and it's as if this is not here. Like nobody knows this is here. And I looked at him and I was like, it's Wakanda. And he started laughing and I'm an idiot. I was like, it's Wakanda. I was like, you know Wakanda. He was like, I know Wakanda. Are you crazy? Of course I know Wakanda. And I was like, it is though. It's like this little bubble of enchantment. And every time
for y'all. Just waiting for y'all.
For us. Yes. It is. And so when that happened and when they said, we want to offer you only have to pay first month's rent. And we were like, we can come up with first month's rent, right? We can do this. I realized it like snapped in me. And I said, I have lived my whole life expecting the worst from everything, from everyone. And I haven't gotten the worst from everything and everyone. I've had a relatively pretty good, there have been ups and downs, but just like anything. So what if I just put out there into the universe an offering? Like I am offering you my freedom of mind, that what needs to happen or what can happen will happen. And that can mean personally, spiritually, financially, because I believed 2 weeks ago that this space was going to be ours at some point. And now here they have offered us this opportunity to not have a guarantor. They are trusting our community. We put forth to them, this is who we are. This is our model. There are 8 of us. We are committed. We will do everything we can to make this rent happen every month. Our intentions are here. And they actually changed the possibility of the rent. It was going to be 5-year lease and they made it a 2-year lease because we understand you just need your legs. And I was like, can you please just leave a picture of yourself because we're going to hang it up over the mantle because we have these beautiful mantle pieces there and we're going to honor y'all because you have made this possible. And in making it possible, people have come, right? We have 15 kids enrolled right now. We have maybe 7 or 8 that are in the pipeline for enrollment. And that's just the people that we've gotten word of mouth. I haven't even begun going to the different people in our community. We have a whole list of resources that we're working on creating because we know that the Sudbury model very, very much is like there's no coercion, right? Like kids will learn what they need to learn and they'll figure it out and they'll come to us. But we also are working really hard to connect with people in our community, companies, businesses, resources in our community that know about us. And that will be a resource if a student says to us, we want to learn to do this.
Exactly, which is what this thing is all about, which is what's so awesome about it. You get to do all. It's not either or. It's whatever each person needs.
Exactly. Yes. And so we're doing that. And so in doing that, every time we reach out to somebody in the community, they come and they look at the space, they hear about it, we meet with them. We're creating this network and people are just like, yes, this is so cool. And then we've also, and again, that abundance, like people, everyone says yes. No one says, no, this doesn't seem like something I'd be interested in. I mean, everyone's fascinated by this idea of self-direction. And so we have just continued to reach out, and we're reaching out. I'm about to begin reaching out to like neighborhood groups, like movement groups. Yeah. We haven't gotten to that point. We've been doing a lot of individual and just trying to get the doors open. But now that we have a space, we can bring people in. So like I am going to be setting up appointments with our like local showing up for racial justice community. I want to get Black Lives Matter community, Nashville out there. I want to get our immigration and refugee community that we have, special groups that are already created. I want them to come out and I want them to see, and I want us to work on partnerships because right now we don't have a lot of money. We don't have funding currently for like major financial assistance, but I also don't want it to be financial assistance. I don't like the word for that. It makes me vomit. Yeah. I mean, right now we have to pay the bills. And so we've worked really hard to create a tuition that is lower than most private school tuitions, but also create a day. So our tuition, because everything that I think about right now is financial, we created a tuition at $6,000 a year, but we are open from 8 to 5:30. And that includes that $6,000. So there's no like aftercare. Technically you could have your child right at the school from 8 to 5:30 for that flat $6,000 a year.
Right. You don't need to figure out aftercare which is oftentimes the expense. And as you know, like the more now that you have the space and now that you're going into the different stage of the journey, folks are going to be reaching out to you too. There are all kinds of opportunities out there that you're not even aware of yet, and you don't need to be, because people will bring them to you in form and you can figure it out together. And that's one of the things that I'm super excited about for Nashville, that you're not of the mind of, okay, like how much money can this school make, or let's focus on getting this amount of tuition in. Because yes, I talk to so many school founders, the logistics of that, but the energy around that is even more important. And if we keep feeding into that, that's all it'll be. It'll be another private school version tuition that many people can't afford. And I love that y'all are not of that mind. The reality is there, but if you're not of that mind, then like people like Scott Speed and Atiba Nichols over here doing the Grow tuition model, all these different things are possible if you are of the mind that you're focusing on the people and not just the money, and also not just lack. That's why things like financial assistance, it's like, but what does that feed into? Can we make the model different? Yeah.
Yes. Those are the things that we're doing. Like right now, because we have this space upstairs that the family that we are renting from lived in, we don't have access to that because it's not codes friendly for the school. So it has to remain like either not used, or it could be a space where somebody could live. So this is super exciting because this connection is all because of you and our conversation last year. So let's make the world really small for a second. So the family that's going to be our caretakers is a woman and her daughter who just moved here from Japan. Her daughter was in an international boarding school in Tokyo. The mom, Sherry, is from the United States and her husband is Japanese, but they have always lived in Japan, and her daughter was born in Japan and has grown up there. They decided to come back to the States, and they were trying to decide where to go because they had family in different locations. And the daughter, apparently, her name is Raina, she basically told her mom that in the boarding school that she was in, she had a friend who had been at a Sudbury school for 7 years and who told her, if you are moving to the States, you want to go to a Sudbury school or you just be homeschooled. She was like, don't even waste your time in a school system, like in a public or private school system. And so Raina told her mom, I want to go to a Sudbury school. And so her mom was like, well, we were thinking about Nashville. And so I started doing research and I came across your interview on Fare of the Free Child with Akilah Richards. And so I'm reaching out to you. This was in November that she contacted us. She said, I'm moving in February and I want to be a founder and I want to make sure that we get this school up and running for my daughter for next year. And so she came, and then Raina arrived in April, and they were living with family, and right about the time that we were looking at potentially offering the space to someone to rent, they were in need of a space to rent. And so Raina and Sherry are going to live upstairs and be the caretakers of our space. And then Sherry is going to be able to offer before care from 6:30 to 8 a.m. in the morning. She's already going to be there. Mm-hmm. She's priced it at I think it's like $15 is what she's offering. I mean, it's just extraordinarily, it's a great price. And she's going to offer that in the morning. And then Raina's going to be there during the school day, just being a part of our community. And then that before care is going to help her make the financial commitment that she has to make for the federal government so that she can sponsor her husband, who is Japanese, to come over and get his visa. I mean, the
goosebumps that I know, because when she emailed me after listening to the interview, she was just so excited, and so was her daughter, and they felt so sure that this was the space that was going to make sense for them. And after having the conversations and these are the sort of reasons, again, right? These are the things that motivate us, and also the things that remind us that, in the middle of all of this magic that's happening, this is exactly why, going right back to what you were saying at the beginning, this self-care is so important, because this should have lift you up, and then another day something will happen with zoning and it'll bring you back down. And then it's like this beautiful wave of experiences that uplift and empower, and also can drain and also bring other things to light. As we said, a lot of personal work to light that needs to be done. So it's everybody needs to be doing their work at some level, especially those of us who kind of put ourselves in the seat of this thing. Yes. And I'm so beyond excited about all of the possibilities for your city, for all of us, as a result of this level of commitment and awareness that you have too, Sonia, because it's not just a commitment, it's an awareness of how the work, I keep saying that this work arranges us, and you're letting it arrange you. And because of that, it's impacting, it's billowing out into all of these different things, including our own work. And it's so powerful and exciting. Look at this. The last conversation you and I had, at least on the podcast, it was a lot of figuring out. And now it's oh, no, this is about to happen. I'm talking to my children about whether they're going every day or not.
Right.
It's real at another level now. But as you said, you've been speaking to it as its real self. You weren't speaking to it from a space of what if. So now, as it is real, what does this mean for me? What is the shape of my liberation now, with all of these things and all of these people and all of these beautiful opportunities in the mix?
Yes. What is it? I know. And that's the thing. I'm so ready for all of it. I feel like it's, the rhythmic gymnastics where they have the ribbons and they ripple out. When you just said about how it just ripples and how it was what ifs last year. Yeah. And now it's like these threads, these beautiful ribbons or ripples of waves are just rolling out, and it's just the beginning. This is the precipice of the opportunities that Nashville has for more spaces for freedom.
Yeah.
And I'm just ready. I'm so excited that we came together a community of 8 founders, a Facebook group that is almost 500 people now. Mm-hmm. And I mean, maybe they're not paying attention every day, but they paid enough attention to hit like on our private group and ask to be invited over the past 3 years. And I just feel like that energy of like interest and what if and what is this? And I want to hear more. I want to be a fly on the wall. It has created these opportunities and it's just going to keep going from here. And I'm excited to be on the ride, but I'm also like making sure that I don't let it overwhelm me because I have these dreams that are for even more freedom. And I am now kind of on this new path that I've just kind of discovered recently where if I can work on getting myself financially free, then when you're financially free, along with all these other freedoms, then the energy that I can put into these movements, I can really put them in, right? I don't have to worry. And I am done with 4.31% of the population having that and then not sharing the knowledge about it. And I'm done with being quiet. All I want to do is talk about money, religion, and politics. Seriously, that's what I want to talk about. And that's what we were told to be quiet about.
That's what we were told to be quiet about and to hide. And to hide ourselves. Like, listen, you know what? Every time, because this is exactly the work. This is what liberation looks like. It looks like, where are the spaces where I am participating in oppression, whether it's someone else's or my own, or I'm silent to someone else's. And that's what I hear. That's how it resonates for me. When you're talking, it lands for me like me recognizing a lot of the ways that I was participating in the oppression of my daughters, as I talk about all the time, which spills out into lots of other things, but also my own. Because what are the hiding spaces? What is the shedding that I hadn't been doing, which I just had a conversation with someone about this the other day. Like, I realized that my own shadows are in the way of me doing this work at the level that it needs to be done. And this makes it about the work, but it also makes it very much about me, which is totally fine because it is me in it.
Exactly.
So I love that you brought this to the space, and I should have known, because in my mind I was like, we're going to have the conversation about what's happening with Nashville Sudbury, and then I'm going to tease out the personal stuff because I know what Sonia's about. But now, like, the conversation is exactly how I believe it needed to go, where we are talking about, yes, the logistics and where you are, and it is very much an update, a freaking exciting one. But also, we're talking about the people inside the work and what it means to take care of ourselves as we continue to define liberation and understand liberation, and also understand what we need to do to really get free in the spaces that we haven't been free, like money and politics and religion and spirituality and all of these different spaces. All of it is connected. They're not separate things.
And do you feel that as I do this work for myself, I'm doing it for myself, but in doing it for myself, because I have to free myself, it's a model for my kids. And I don't even think they see it in the way that, like, I think typically what a model, when you say I'm modeling this behavior.
Right.
In January, I started writing every morning. And my children wake up now and they know. They're like, have you already finished writing today? Or they bring notebooks. Now, they aren't writing yet, but they bring their notebook down and they sit in with me if I'm still writing when they wake up. And they write too. And when in this financial aspect, you know, scarcity. When I talk to them about money, it has always been scarcity. We don't have it. We need to be careful. We may not be able to do that, but it's never been about consciously considering what we want to spend our money on, because there wasn't ever that much money, right?
Yep.
But now I'm looking at money and I'm looking at this idea of freedom in that yes, I can get my debt down and I can figure out how to work assets to my advantage and take the money that I have that I'm using for crap and turn it around and potentially invest and consider these things and automate the money so that then I can do the things that I love to do. And I'm learning these things that I didn't even know these words existed, but I'm learning this whole like self-directed, like I have this passion to learn this in this way and free myself, but then also free my girls, because we can look at things consciously and not look at it and not in a way of like, oh, well, now you can have whatever you want. No, I'm not interested in them having whatever they want. I don't want them to be spoiled, rotten Trumps. I'm sorry. Did I say that? I want them to like pay attention to where their money goes and to how they spend it and to, does it bring them joy? Does it bring their community joy?
It's a relationship with it now, right? Like not a fear against it and the idea of we don't have enough, but my approach to it is about like how am I utilizing the skills that I have? Even currency. Even I talk to the girls a lot about reframing the idea of currency. Don't think about it as these coins and this paper that ain't even backed by shit at the moment. Don't get me started. Like we're actually talking about currency, which is so many things.
It is
so many things. And if you're not coming to it from a space of what we don't have, then you're not in that fear-based space. So you can all of the spiritual things like the manifestation and all of the logistic things that we think of are separate, that are really not.
And how we have this opportunity, at least I feel like I have this opportunity because my focus is creating these freedom spaces for children to learn. We have 4.5 acres of land that we are the stewards of now. And we have a community. We have families that are going to be paying tuition. So what does tuition mean? You know, we have space to start a community garden. And, you know, starting in May, potentially, if we do this right, that's $6,000, that $500 a month. If you're doing it over 12 months, maybe when you're budgeting $500 a month, it's not just for tuition for your kids. Maybe there's a CSA that's involved. And so families can come and pick from the community garden, because we know that gardens bring abundance. And once you're growing, it doesn't stop. It just keeps coming and coming. And so let people take that are in our community and let them use that. And so when they look at that $500 in May, they can say, well, this is for tuition, or so that I don't have to put my children in a government funded crap space where they're being judged. So yes, I am making a sacrifice for my family, but also I can consider this $500 toward my grocery budget too. Right. Like, so that's you make it more fruitful. You make the tuition, you make that idea more fruitful, and create a community and a collective around it, because when it is all said and done, we are not going to fix or change the way that society is moving forward. As abundant and as hopeful as I am for our communities in these spaces that we've created, I believe that society in a whole is going to look a lot different in our future. I've been preaching this. Right. And then I read Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler this past year. And I was like, oh my God, why did I not know? Like, I've been like, we've got to do something. But I am after I finished reading that, I was like, that is what the Sudbury model is to me. It is not like, let's make sure everybody knows how to be democratic for when they start voting, when they're 18. Bullshit. No. Make sure that children understand how to direct their own learning, be free, choose what they're passionate about, find ways to make money through it, and then work together as a collaborative community and understand how to communicate with one another, resolve conflict, create democratic spaces in small micro communities, because that's where we're going. We're moving toward Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. I wish we weren't, but we're a hell of a lot closer. I mean, she's a fucking prophet, okay?
Listen, don't get me started. Yes, this is why I keep bringing up Afrofuturism. I'm like, I need like 5 more podcasts, but then I realize once again, everything is everything. So we're going to weave it all in, because that's separatism. Those categorizations are also a part of the problem.
It's all the path. It's all the same path. And so these kids that come to our school, and this is why we've got to connect with the cross section of Nashville, and we need of the 15 kids, we're pretty diverse, but we're not as diverse as we could be, but we're going to keep getting there because we have to create these communities, and these laws and the rules that we're creating have to come from every voice, because these are the communities that are going to shape our children and our grandchildren's lives. And rightly so, because I can't take much more of Customs and Border Control patrol. I slipped there. And ICE. Right. Did I slip? Right. Because like we have to arm our children with the techniques that they need to be free and to have joy, but also to connect in their communities.
Exactly. And thank you for saying that, because we don't just get together under the umbrella of self-directed education and then magically everything else happens. We need language, we need practice, we need tools, we need people who are living it, not just when they drop their kids off in the space, but understand how to work it at home, understand how to be in community with each other, understand how to build out the more equitable spaces that you need, started from wherever you are. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
You see, and this is why every time we get together, I'm like, what is going on? Why aren't we talking together more often? But I know why, because also we're doing our work, right, in all the different ways. But each time I speak to you, every time, like right now, my hands are literally in prayer, because it's so important that we talk about this in this cohesive way, because all of these things are connected, and we're out here feeling these pangs separately and having no way to communicate it or feel like there isn't a space for it. And this is why I'm so excited that you in particular, and I know it's not just you, I know you have a group of different people who are working this with you, but you're who I'm talking to. So I know Marie is in the mix, and, you know, other folks who are doing things at different levels. But I'm so grateful that it's you in particular, because of how you approach things from this whole woman perspective. It's so important because, as you said, it's a model, and it's not just a model for your girls. It's a model for all of us to be able to remember ourselves and to give us like that cosmic permission, in a sense, to remember ourselves in our work. Because a lot of people who listen are doing this work in their own way, forming community, whether it's just them and their partner, or starting a school or whatever. And I need y'all to remember. I need y'all to remember that developing your own way of taking care of yourself, to give space to do shit like contemplate, how important that is as you go through these portals, because that's what you're doing. You're opening up pathways for different things to happen through you and in the world. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you'll end up at the altar of this thing. And that's not what this is about.
Right. No.
So thank you so much for representing that space for us right now.
Well, thank you for giving space for us to use our voices to come together and create this community. I mean, it is such an essential part to this movement, and it's just magic making, lady. Making magic everywhere.
Yeah, it's good and necessary, and I appreciate you. You know this. And so always I'm going to ask the question, if folks are listening and are like, yes, this resonates, I need to talk to her, I need to contribute in some way, what do we do?
So you can like our page on Facebook. We're Nashville Sudbury School. We also have a website, nashvillesudburyschool.org. And I have an email on there that's Sonia, SONIA, at Nashville Sudbury School. And our Instagram is that too. But then personally, I have an Instagram where I am a mess. And it's Sonia Fernandez LeBlanc, or I think the tag is So El Fetole.
And I'll put all that stuff on the show notes page, y'all, so you can just click on those links and connect, because as you hear, she is just a beautiful, that's why I consider you like a beautiful space.
I feel the same way.
Good. Oh man, mutual love. Because just a beautiful, honest space. And then there's so much more to come. You know, you and I have talked about a lot of different things. I consider you one of my storyteller sheroes, because this is what you do. You know, you're absolutely a griot in your magic, and we don't even get to talk about that enough.
That's true. We don't. I always forget about that. I have a Facebook page called Revolutions. All definitions apply, and it's Revolutions with an S, and you should check that out too, because I do a lot of just typing. There's a blog connected, but I just do it on Facebook when I need to typing. Yeah. So that's all very personal and very political.
Yes, we're here for all the pieces, the pieces. Yes. Thank you, Sonia. I love me some you. You know this.
Love you so much.
Hugs to your family. We got to hug in person, which is great, and we need to do it again. But so much love and appreciation. I'm so grateful for what you're doing for your city and for all of us, sis.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great one.
Get in touch with Sonia and the other members of Nashville Sudbury's founding team through Instagram at Nashville Sudbury, or just look them up, Nashville Sudbury School. Sonia actually also has her own personal Instagram, Sonia Fernandez LeBlanc, and I will put that link in the show notes page, which again is raisingfreepeople.com/97. Thank you for listening. I hope you took time to feel through this episode. We have a few more to go before we end the season, and I'm very much looking forward to sharing that with you and getting your feedback, which is always so very much appreciated. Much love, y'all. Thanks for listening.